Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
You begin to see the pattern once you understand how attention systems and behavior shape outcomes. Potential is not something rare, it is something unused. When we talk about potential, we are referring to your capacity to grow beyond your current state, to learn faster, to build more, to think deeper, to create outcomes that feel out of reach right now. That capacity exists in almost everyone. The difference is not who has it. The difference is who uses it. Most people do not lose their potential in a single moment. It erodes slowly, through daily habits that feel harmless, through choices that trade long-term growth for short-term comfort. Over time, this erosion becomes invisible. You do not feel like you are losing anything. You feel normal, and that is the trap. Because normal in most environments is far below what you are capable of. Stopping the waste begins with recognizing that your current state is not your limit. It is a reflection of how you have been using your time and attention so far. Cheap dopamine plays a central role in this erosion. Dopamine is a chemical in the brain associated with motivation and reward. It drives you to seek outcomes that feel good. Cheap dopamine refers to easy, immediate sources of reward that require little effort. Endless scrolling, quick entertainment, instant gratification. These create spikes of pleasure without requiring growth. The problem is not the pleasure itself. The problem is the imbalance. When your brain becomes used to easy rewards, it loses interest in effort-based rewards. Tasks that require focus and patience start to feel harder than they actually are. You avoid them. You choose what is easier. Over time, this rewires your behavior. Your ability to engage deeply with meaningful work decreases. Winners manage this carefully. They reduce exposure to constant stimulation. They train their minds to find satisfaction in effort. This shifts the balance. It makes hard work feel rewarding again. Awareness determines whether you notice this process or remain trapped in it. Awareness means observing your thoughts, habits, and patterns without immediately reacting to them. It is the ability to see what you are doing as you are doing it. Without awareness, you operate on autopilot. You follow routines without questioning them. You consume without thinking. You react without choosing. This is where most people spend their time. They are busy, yet not intentional. Awareness breaks that pattern. It creates a gap between impulse and action. In that gap, you can decide. You can choose differently. This is where control begins. When you notice that you are reaching for distraction instead of working, you have the option to stop. When you notice that you are avoiding something difficult, you can face it. Without awareness, these moments pass unnoticed. With awareness, they become opportunities for change. Accountability ties everything together. It is the willingness to take responsibility for your actions and their outcomes. When we talk about accountability, we are referring to owning your decisions without blaming external factors. Most people avoid this because it is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront your own role in your current situation. It removes excuses. It removes the narrative that circumstances are entirely responsible for where you are. Winners accept this discomfort. They look at their results honestly. If something is not working, they do not hide from it. They analyze it. They adjust. This creates progress. Without accountability, awareness has no impact. You may see your patterns, yet you do not change them. Accountability turns observation into action. There is a connection between dopamine, awareness, and accountability that most people overlook. Cheap dopamine reduces awareness. It keeps your mind occupied with constant input. This makes it harder to notice your patterns. Without awareness, accountability weakens. You cannot take responsibility for what you do not see. This creates a loop. You consume, you lose awareness, you avoid responsibility, and your potential continues to erode. Breaking this loop requires intentional action. You reduce distractions. You create space for observation. You take ownership of your behavior. Each step reinforces the others. Over time, this rebuilds your ability to focus, to act, to grow. Another factor that contributes to wasted potential is the avoidance of difficulty. Hard tasks require effort, focus, and patience. They expose your limits. They demand growth. Many people avoid them because they are uncomfortable. They choose easier alternatives. This creates a pattern where you stay within your current ability. You do not challenge yourself enough to improve. Over time, this stagnation becomes your baseline. Winners move in the opposite direction. They seek out difficulty. They understand that growth happens at the edge of their ability. They do not wait for external pressure. They create it. This keeps them progressing. It expands their capacity. It prevents stagnation. Environment also plays a role in shaping behavior. The people around you, the content you consume, the systems you operate within. These influence your actions more than you realize. If your environment promotes distraction, you will find it harder to focus. If it rewards comfort, you will avoid challenge. This is not about blaming your surroundings. It is about recognizing their impact. Winners design their environment intentionally. They remove unnecessary distractions. They surround themselves with influences that support their goals. This reduces friction. It makes it easier to act in alignment with their intentions. Without this, you are constantly fighting against your environment. Time amplifies all of these factors. Small habits repeated daily create significant outcomes over months and years. Wasting time occasionally does not destroy potential. Wasting it consistently does. The same applies to growth. Small actions taken regularly build momentum. They create progress that compounds. Most people underestimate this effect. They look for immediate results. When they do not see them, they lose motivation. Winners focus on consistency. They understand that results take time to appear. They continue regardless of immediate feedback. This patience allows their efforts to accumulate. Over time, this creates outcomes that seem disproportionate to the effort invested. There is also a shift in identity that occurs when you stop wasting your potential. You begin to see yourself differently. Not as someone who reacts to life, but as someone who shapes it. This identity influences your actions. It reinforces positive behavior. When you see yourself as disciplined, you act accordingly. When you see yourself as focused, you maintain that focus. This creates alignment between your beliefs and your actions. Most people never reach this point because they remain stuck in patterns that contradict the identity they want. Changing behavior changes identity. Identity reinforces behavior. This cycle determines your trajectory. Once you start reclaiming your potential and taking ownership of your attention, a quieter realization begins to surface. The damage was never sudden. It accumulated. Time does not arrive like a storm that forces you to react. It works like pressure that builds slowly, almost invisibly. When we describe time as a slow dagger, we are pointing toward its subtle nature. It does not shock you into awareness. It reveals you gradually. Your habits, your thoughts, your patterns, they compound in silence. You do not notice the shift day to day. Nothing feels dramatically different. Yet years later, you look back and realize that you are still thinking in the same way, still hesitating in the same places, still having the same internal debates. That is the exposure. Not a moment of collapse, but a slow unveiling of who you have been all along. And by the time you recognize it, the cost has already been paid in time. Repetition is what gives time its edge. The mind runs loops, thoughts repeat, conversations with yourself replay. When we talk about having the same conversation with yourself after 10 years, we are referring to unresolved internal conflicts, questions you never answered, decisions you delayed, patterns you never broke. These remain active beneath the surface. You may change environments, meet new people, take on new roles, yet internally, the same scripts continue. This creates the illusion of change without actual transformation. You feel like you are moving forward, yet your internal state remains unchanged. Winners interrupt this repetition. They do not allow thoughts to loop indefinitely. They confront them. They resolve them. They make decisions. This breaks the cycle. Without that interruption, time simply reinforces what already exists. The danger lies in how comfortable this repetition feels. Familiar thoughts feel safe. Even when they limit you, they provide a sense of stability. You know how the conversation will go. You know where it leads. This predictability keeps you within your current identity. It prevents growth. Time does not challenge this directly. It allows it. It lets you stay within those patterns for years. And because there is no immediate consequence, you continue. This is why the exposure is slow. You do not feel the weight of your choices in the moment. You feel it later, when you realize that nothing has changed. When you see that the same fears, the same doubts, the same excuses are still present. That realization carries more weight than any immediate failure. Awareness plays a critical role in breaking this pattern. Without it, you do not notice the repetition. You move through your days reacting, thinking, deciding without stepping back. Awareness allows you to observe your internal dialogue. You begin to hear the same phrases, the same justifications, the same limitations. This recognition is the first step. It shows you where you are stuck. It reveals the loops that have been running for years. Most people avoid this level of observation because it is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront the reality of your own patterns. Winners lean into it. They listen carefully. They identify what needs to change, and then they act on it. Action is what separates awareness from transformation. Seeing the pattern is not enough. You have to disrupt it. This means making different choices, responding differently, taking actions that contradict your usual behavior. This creates friction. It feels unnatural at first. That is expected. You are breaking a pattern that has been reinforced over time. Each new action weakens the old loop. Each repetition of the new behavior strengthens it. Over time, this creates a shift. The internal conversation changes. The questions evolve, the hesitation decreases. Without action, awareness becomes another loop. You recognize the problem, yet you do not change it, and time continues to pass. Time also amplifies consequences. Small patterns may seem insignificant in the moment. A delay here, an avoidance there, a decision postponed. These do not appear damaging on their own. Yet repeated over months and years, they shape your life. This is where the slow dagger becomes clear. It is not the individual moment that matters. It is the accumulation. Winners understand this. They treat small decisions with importance. They do not dismiss them as trivial. They recognize that consistency in small actions leads to significant outcomes. This awareness changes how they operate daily. They act with intention, knowing that each choice contributes to a larger pattern. It stops being something abstract. It becomes tangible. You see how it interacts with your behavior. You notice how quickly days pass when you are not paying attention. You become aware of how easy it is to fall into repetition. This awareness creates urgency, not panic, but focus. You begin to value your time differently. You use it more deliberately. You reduce activities that do not contribute to growth. You prioritize actions that move you forward. This changes your trajectory. It prevents the slow drift that leads to stagnation. The idea of having the same conversation with yourself after 10 years also points to unresolved identity. You carry beliefs about who you are. These beliefs shape your actions. If they remain unchanged, your actions remain consistent. This creates stability, yet it also creates limitation. Winners challenge their identity. They question whether their current beliefs still serve them. They update them. They expand them. This allows for new behavior, new decisions, new outcomes. Without this shift, time reinforces your existing identity. It keeps you within the same boundaries, and those boundaries become your reality. After recognizing how time quietly exposes patterns, a harsher truth begins to take shape. Change does not arrive through comfort. Growth does not emerge from ease. The idea of becoming something greater demands a process that most people avoid. When we talk about burning, we are referring to sustained pressure, sacrifice, and intense engagement with difficulty. It is the willingness to go through discomfort long enough for transformation to occur. Stars, in the physical sense, are formed under immense pressure and heat. That metaphor carries weight because it reflects a deeper principle. Transformation requires intensity. You do not evolve by staying within familiar limits. You evolve by entering environments and processes that demand more from you than you currently offer. This is not about suffering for the sake of it. It is about choosing conditions that force growth. Without that, potential remains dormant. It never converts into something visible or impactful. The process begins with friction. Friction is the resistance you feel when you attempt something beyond your current ability. It shows up as doubt, hesitation, mental fatigue, and the urge to stop. This is the point where most people turn back. They interpret resistance as a signal that something is wrong. In reality, it is a signal that something is changing. When you push through friction, you expand your capacity. Your mind adapts. Your skills improve. Your tolerance for difficulty increases. This is what it means to engage with intensity. It is not a single moment. It is repeated exposure to resistance until it becomes manageable. Over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes part of your baseline. That shift is where transformation begins. Growth demands energy, time, and focus. You cannot maintain the same lifestyle, the same habits, the same level of comfort and expect significant change. Something has to be given up. This is where most people hesitate. They want the outcome without the trade-off. They want progress without sacrifice. Yet every meaningful transformation requires exchange. You trade comfort for growth. You trade ease for development. This does not mean abandoning everything. It means prioritizing what matters. Winners understand this clearly. They make decisions based on long-term outcomes rather than short-term convenience. They accept the cost because they understand the return. Identity begins to shift under this pressure. When you consistently engage with difficulty, you start to see yourself differently. You no longer identify as someone who avoids challenge. You become someone who moves toward it. This shift influences your behavior. It changes how you respond to new situations. You approach them with confidence built through experience. Not because you believe you can handle anything, but because you have proven that you can adapt. This creates a stable form of confidence, one that does not rely on external validation. It is rooted in what you have done, not what you hope to do. When you commit to this level of effort, your priorities change, your habits change. Your environment may no longer align with your direction. This creates distance. It can feel like you are moving alone. This is part of the process. Growth often separates before it connects. You step away from patterns that no longer serve you. You create space for new ones. Over time, this leads to alignment with people and environments that match your level of focus. Yet the initial phase requires independence. It requires the ability to continue without constant support. This builds resilience. It strengthens your commitment. Consistency plays a critical role here. Intensity alone is not enough if it is not sustained. Many people push hard for short periods and then stop. They burn out because they rely on bursts of effort rather than steady engagement. True transformation comes from repeated exposure over time. It is the accumulation of effort that creates change. This is where discipline becomes essential. You show up even when motivation is low. You continue even when progress feels slow. Each session adds to the previous one. Each repetition reinforces the pattern. Over time, this builds momentum that carries you forward. When you engage deeply with your work, you begin to notice details that others miss. Your understanding becomes more precise. You see connections, patterns, opportunities that were previously invisible. This is the result of focused effort. It sharpens your perception. It allows you to operate at a higher level. Most people never reach this stage because they do not stay engaged long enough. They move from one thing to another. They do not go deep. Winners stay with the process. They refine continuously. This creates a level of mastery that sets them apart. Pain is often misunderstood in this context. It is not something to avoid completely. It is something to interpret correctly. Productive discomfort signals growth. It shows that you are pushing beyond your current limits. Destructive pain, on the other hand, indicates damage. The ability to distinguish between the two is critical. Winners develop this awareness. They know when to push and when to adjust. This allows them to maintain progress without unnecessary setbacks. It creates a balanced approach, one that maximizes growth while minimizing harm. There is a point where the process begins to change your relationship with effort itself. What once felt difficult starts to feel natural. You no longer resist it in the same way. You begin to seek it. This does not mean everything becomes easy. It means your capacity has increased. You can handle more without being overwhelmed. This creates a new baseline. From this point, you continue to push, to refine, to expand. The cycle repeats at a higher level. Each phase builds on the previous one. This is how long-term growth is sustained. After understanding that transformation demands pressure and deliberate effort, another layer becomes impossible to ignore. If you do not actively shape your direction, something else will do it for you. When we talk about being assigned a life, we are referring to the default path created by systems, expectations, and algorithms that guide behavior at scale. It is not a single authority making decisions for you. It is a network of influences that gradually shape your choices without direct force. You wake up, follow routines, consume information, respond to incentives, and over time, a path forms. That path feels like your own because you walked it, yet you never designed it. This is how assignment works. It is subtle. It is gradual. It does not require permission. It only requires your inattention. Once you see this clearly, the responsibility shifts back to you. Either you decide your direction, or you accept what is given. The structure begins early. Education introduces a predefined sequence. You learn what to study, when to study, how to perform. This creates a foundation for predictable behavior. When we talk about structured pathways, we mean systems designed to guide large groups efficiently. They prioritize consistency over individuality. This creates stability, yet it also narrows exploration. You are trained to meet expectations rather than question them. Over time, this mindset carries forward. You look for instructions. You wait for direction. You measure success based on external standards. This is not inherently harmful. It becomes limiting when it replaces independent thinking. Those who step outside this pattern begin to design their own paths. They still use systems, yet they do not rely on them to define their direction. Work environments reinforce this assignment. Roles are defined. Responsibilities are clear. Processes are optimized for efficiency. This creates predictable outcomes. It also reduces the need for independent decision-making. When we refer to assigned roles, we are talking about positions where expectations are set externally and followed consistently. This creates income and structure. It can also create dependence. Your progress becomes tied to that structure. Your options become limited by it. Those who want more control begin to build outside of it. They create additional streams, develop skills that are not confined to a single role, and reduce reliance on one system.